Hello, I hope you all have had a great Tuesday, and I am very happy to see how so many of you have done your homework. Tonight, I hope that our discussion will be interactive because I've got my reading glasses so that I can see what you're saying and we can all talk to each other. I mentioned a very significant figure in American history and Black history last night. And when we started digging a little bit deeper than just what we were told in school, some people seem to have gotten rather upset. I realized that many times information and truth are not the same thing. And when truth collides with information, sometimes cognitive dissonance occurs. I want you to stick a pin in that term. Cognitive, Cognitive, dissonance. Dissonance, Dissonance. And pardon my speech, sometimes this hardware in my mouth gets in the way of me pronouncing some words as clearly as possible. I want you to pull out all your notes, all the research that you've done, and I want us to pick up our discussion last night about Black women's real, true role in the women's lib movement, what the women's liberation movement really was, and I hope that we'll begin to see some comparisons to, to being pimped and the way Black women were hoodwinked into joining the women's liberation movement. I also want you all to be ready to discuss how us joining this so-called women's liberation movement may have been one of the four horsemen, I say, that destroyed our community, along with pseudo-integration, drugs, welfare, and the so-called women's liberation movement. Now, I want you to understand that last night we discussed Frederick Douglass. The history books that were not written by us has taught us that Frederick Douglass was a great abolitionist. What they don't teach you much about is that he was married to a woman named Mary. They were married for over 44 years, and 28 of those 44 years, he was involved with Athalie Assing. She was a part Jewish, part German feminist who came from a very wealthy and very prominent family. And in time, she ended up coming to the United States and writing for a publication under a male pseudonym. Now, although Anna Murray Douglass and Frederick Douglass never officially got a divorce, Frederick Douglass spent extended time away from Anna Murray with Athalie Assing. Now, at one point, it is recorded that Athalie actually was in the home of Frederick and Anna Douglass, and that she treated Anna Douglass with great contempt and was rather disrespectful to her. Now, why are you talking about Frederick Douglass and his wife and his side woman or other woman or his mistress? Why are you talking about that? We're supposed to be talking about the women's liberation movement. Well, this is a great case study because many of you last night, when a member of the clergy came on and started telling me that I didn't know what I was talking about Frederick Douglass' extracurricular activities, he got very upset. And I think that although he meant well, his accusation or allegations that what I was saying was not true was a great segue or a great intro into getting into the meat of this discussion. Now, Ottilie Assing was a wealthy German, Jewish, European, non-black woman. She met Frederick Douglass. She was intrigued with Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass had become a very well-known abolitionist. He was intelligent. He was well-spoken. And just like very handsome, intelligent black men are appealing to women of many nationalities today, so it was back then. She was wealthy. She had the means to further Frederick Douglass's cause. And whether he loved her or not, we have to look at the fact that Frederick Douglass chose to be with this woman for various reasons, and one of them may very well have been because she was wealthy or because she was rich. Having money often makes life a lot easier and helps us to promote the causes that we believe in. Frederick Douglass was no different. As a matter of fact, a lot of people do not realize that Anna Murray was already somewhat self-sufficient when she met Frederick Douglass, and she actually, as we say now, brought him up. Do your research about Anna Murray and find out that she was a self-sufficient, very hard-working woman who stood by Frederick Douglass when he had nothing. She was not a feminist. She believed in working and helping to support the family even on his long absences. I'm giving you all this background because I want you to understand now. Enter Ottilie Assing. She's a wealthy person from a prominent family who's never had to work or struggle a day in her life, and she's accustomed to getting what she wants. However, her education and even her family's fortune is not enough to overcome the traditional misogyny and chauvinistic traditions of European society and European males. And I want to make sure I'm saying it right. I want to make sure, is it patriarchal? And if I'm not saying it right, let me know. Europeans are patriarchal people. They are a male-dominated society. They are a male-dominated culture. So even though this woman was smart, bright, intelligent, and had her family's money and backing, it was not enough to overcome the fact that in white male-dominated society she would be just a woman. Therefore, she became a feminist. And she came to America, met Frederick Douglass, and realized that even back then, that the abolitionist movement may have had, or she could make people believe that the abolitionist movement had some parallels or was similar or had something in common with the women's lib movement. So the efforts for black people to be free didn't just get hijacked at the end of the civil rights movement. The efforts for black people to gain their rights didn't just get hijacked in the late 60s and early 70s. Feminists started aligning themselves with people who were fighting for our freedom or raising attention to our cause and hijacking it way back in the 1800s. Adderley Osling fell in love with Frederick Douglass. And it's possible that maybe Frederick Douglass just was trying to get in the good graces of this woman so that he could have the financial resources that he needed. Frederick Douglass had become a minister in the AME Church, the African Methodist Episcopal Church. And upon meeting this woman, this liaison was formed, and she moved into Douglass's inner circle, even around his wife. And she wanted to find common ground with someone who was also fighting against their own oppression and mistreatment. And just like modern day women's liberals, she thought that she could latch on and hook up with this cause and get some momentum for what she was doing. But if you did your homework, you also saw how she treated Mary Douglass, another woman, with disdain, disrespect, and contempt. Now, explain this to me. And it happens, and it's just as sickening. How is it that one person in one condition or one predicament who's trying to free themselves from their own oppression would have the nerve to look at somebody else who's in a similar situation and further oppress them? How can you try to align your cause with mine and then see me as being beneath you? You're supposed to be fighting oppression, and you choose to oppress me. Now, the marital dynamics between Frederick and Anna Murray is one thing. The fact that the woman that he was seeing was a feminist who was promoting the fact of how great women were and how equal women should be to me. And this woman had the nerve to treat another woman like she was nothing. She could not see Anna Douglass or any black woman as being equal to her. So, academia aside, how in the hell are you going to be pushing for your freedom and still trying to deny me mine? And let's go even deeper. How in the hell could you be so crazy about a black man that you would fall so crazy in love with him that you even left him money in your will after he had married yet another white woman, but hate me? Pay attention, ladies. This woman loved Frederick Douglass so much that even when she was ill from cancer, when she found out that, he didn't divorce Anna Murray, she died, he married another woman who happened to be white. When she got the news, she killed herself. But before she killed herself, she still wouldn't take him out of her will and left a fortune at that time to her. $13,000 was a lot of money back in the 1800s. And she had it sent to him as a stipend in increments. That means she gave him, it was written in the will that he would get so much at a time. He didn't get the lump sum. Ain't that a blip? I'm going to say it one more time. This feminist who was seeking to liberate women, not only was she disrespectful to Anna Murray, who was the man's wife. Do you think that her disrespect and disdain for people of color stopped at Anna Murray's wife? Do you think this was just a love triangle that made her treat Anna Murray that way? Some may try to dismiss it that way, but I still can't understand how you can love a black man that much and you have no respect for black women? You trying to oppress and disrespect a black woman, yet you talking about you a feminist seeking to liberate liberate women? And by 1970, hadn't a damn thing changed. And in 2017, ain't a damn thing changed. The women's liberation movement was a self-serving movement for white women. It didn't have not one thing to do with black women. And I chose specifically and deliberately chose the example of Ottilie Aisling so that you can see that her actions are no different. Wealthy women who are not black have used their influence and their wealth to lure black men for a long time. They have also attempted to use that wealth and influence to even try to control them. Frederick Douglass could not be controlled by Ottilie Aisling. And in her competition for recognition and maybe for the heart of Frederick Douglass, she treated Anna real cold. And even now, I think you need to see another parallel in that a lot of these so-called feminists, like Ottilie Aisling, they telling you that you don't need a man, but they steady doing everything they can to get yours. A feminist? A feminist. I'm a strong woman. Yet, you stayed connected and ran behind a man for 28 years. And even in death, you still was trying to hold on to him. You didn't need a man. You considered yourself to be a feminist. Yet you out here with this woman's man. Now let's fast forward 150 years or so. White feminists tell black women they don't need a man. They just need to be equal with the man. Just like Ottilie Aisling. They selling you them wolf tickets. And you don't even realize that the paper that the wolf tickets printed on ain't even real. And while she talking that noise to your face, behind your back, everything she telling you that you shouldn't do for your man, she doing it for him. And if she's got the money and the influence, she even employs that. And it is the ultimate divide and conquer tactic that has been a huge nail in the coffin of our people. I want you to look at all of the irony. And irony is the element of a story or the element of an event that makes you say, what you said? You got to be joking. What? That's just like your personal trainer barking in your ear to do all them crunches and exercise and eat healthy. And on your way home, you take an alternative route from the gym and see him parked up at Whataburger with a triple meat cheeseburger, cheese, fries, and an extra large Coke. Well, I be. Same thing. Now, I'm not saying that Frederick Douglass was right. And many of y'all will say, well, Frederick was wrong for using that woman and then marrying somebody else. There's another point I want you to see. Just like some of y'all going to say Frederick Douglass used that woman for everything he could get out of her and then marry somebody else, that's exactly what's happening in the feminist movement. These people going to hijack the civil rights movement, get you to burning your bras and talking about you need to be able to compete with these men for these jobs. You crazy. Black women and black men have never had to compete with each other for jobs. You don't own the factories and the corporations that supplying these jobs. These women telling you to come help them fight their men. So because they want to fight their men, they fool you to fight yours. Their husbands and fathers and grandfathers and uncles and brothers were the ones who owned the factories and the plantations where they wanted to have equal jobs and equal pay. What the hell did we own? Nothing. So she wants you to listen to her so you can get tricked to fight your man for the scraps that fall from their table instead of getting with your man to build your own homes, families, and communities. Ain't gonna be no whole lot of happy faces and happy hearts on this discussion because some folks right now is 38 hot. And that's okay. I'm not trying to make you do anything. I just want you to think about this. Think about how crazy we look. Forming an alliance with the female counterpart of the people who seek to kill, destroy us, and oppress us so we can go and fight the person that they eventually gonna go home to at night and sleep and snow in their face, as the old folks say. They were never really fighting them. And you were never really fighting with them. White women were never fighting their own men. Not for real. Not the ones. Now, you may have had some disadvantaging poor white women that thought they needed to get out here and compete to make a living with the poor white men. But the men who held the power for real, do you really think that their wives are going to give up the comforts of their life to get equal pay on a job, to come work in the trenches with you? Do you think they were going to leave their suburban houses with their housekeepers and nannies to come work on a job with you for equal pay as a man and equal pay with you when they have generational wealth because their fathers, grandfathers own the companies, corporations, and firms that you trying to bust the door down in so you can say I'm a strong black woman? How you gonna fight somebody all day and then go get in bed with them at night? Well, I still have to give them credit because even if they pretended to fight them to get some attention for a hobby or whatever, they know when to cut it off. What has it gotten us? Nothing. And then let me explain something else to you. When it suited Ashley, I hope I'm pronouncing her name right, she dealt with Frederick Douglass. Maybe because he was the half-white son of a slave owner. Maybe. But just like a lot of you are going to say, well, Frederick Douglass used all those women. He used Anna Murray for a come-up. He used Atta Lee as a come-up. Well, a lot of things in the women's lib movement, if you look at it, will let you see as black women, you got used for a come-up. Because once they get you to marching and making signs and wearing out your shoe leather, marching for causes that they want to fight for, are they marching with you? Or will they march with you when a police officer blows your son's brains out for no damn reason? Are they protesting to have the licensure removed or those shows canceled when the radio personality called one of the senators a lazy hoe? Back here a few years ago when that personality, talk show personality, called that winning basketball team, when he called those black girls nappy-headed hoes Where were those women? Where did y'all have the protests at? Where were y'all marching at about that together? When Philando Castile got his brains blown out, where were they with their black lives? Where were they? Where were they out in full force with Black Lives Matter? When Trayvon Martin was murdered, where were they? When Sandra Bland was, when it was discovered that that woman didn't die, she didn't just die. Where were they? Were they marching in front of, protesting with you out there in front of the jail out there in Texas? How many of them locked arms with Freddie Gray and Tamir Rice's mother, Mike Brown's mother, Garner's mother, or wife or daughter in New York? How many of them are jumping on board with the causes that are legitimate, that you believe in, that you support for the rights of your people? I'll wait. Just like Ottilie Oslin used her influence and money and privilege to hijack the abolitionist movement and parallel it to the feminist movement, all the time while she was doing everything she could to be with Frederick Douglass, she still treated his wife like she was nothing. Not just his wife, but probably any other black woman. I want you to study, really study all of those parallels between the suffrage movement and the women's lib movement, or the feminist movement in the 1800s, and the abolitionist movement, and how Ottilie Oslin did everything she could to control and pull Frederick Douglass away from his family. I want you to look at that in depth and think about how it parallels the mindset and the tactics and motives and ulterior motives of the generators, perpetrators, and originators of the women's lib movement, and how disposable we are as black women when they have this pseudo solidarity when it suits them, and to hell with us, they don't give a rip when issues that affect us come up. This has not been some academic or scholarly discussion. It's just a way to provoke you to start thinking and waking up to see what's really going on. Maybe tomorrow, if I have time, I will show you how other cultures, the Indians, Asians, Hispanic, and Latino women, a few of them may have been recruited into the stable of the women's lib movements when they were like madams and pimps recruiting women from everywhere. But it is the black woman who has remained loyal to the women's lib movement and the feminist movement more so than any other race of woman. And although there are a few women in other races and ethnicities who are diehard feminists and strong women that co-sign that, for lack of a better word, nobody has been pimped and worked so hard to become their bottom bitch like we have. More tomorrow night. Send your questions and comments here on the post or to my inbox. And I hope that as iron sharpens iron, we'll all sharpen each other. As I always say, be good to yourselves. Good night.